Hello, my name is Tammy Medlin, and I'm the local history genealogy librarian here at the Wilson County Public Library. I'd like to welcome you to our program, Wilson County Public Library, The Beginning. Believe it or not, our library turns 100 years old this year. In 1921, Wilson did not have a library, and this building did not exist. The Woman's Club of Wilson decided to do something about it. In the words of Mrs. J.R. McLean, something had to be done about it, and in 1921, the women of Wilson did something. They decided to organize a library in their clubhouse, which was located at 108 North Pine Street. Unfortunately, that building does not exist anymore. On November 29, 1921, the following announcement appeared in the Wilson Daily Times. Library opening tomorrow night. The formal opening of the Wilson County Library will be held tomorrow evening from 7 until 9 o'clock at the Woman's Clubhouse on Pine Street. The public is invited to attend the opening. The library will be open regularly each day after tomorrow evening, the hours to be announced in the Daily Times. That means the Wilson County Public Library opened on November 30th, 1921. The library's hours soon appeared in the paper. It was open from 3:30 to 5:30 in the afternoon and from 7 to 9 at night, each day except Sunday. In the beginning, it was staffed by volunteers, and one of the first volunteers was Mrs. J.R. McLean, and the Woman's Club regarded her as the first librarian. Now, the library wasn't free to everyone. You actually had to pay a subscription of $2 each year in order to use the library, because the library at this time did not receive any money from the town of Wilson or the county of Wilson. It was all done by the Woman's Club and the money they could raise. The library was run by the literary department of the Wilson Woman's Club, but it did have a lot of public support, which is proved by this chart of book donations from 1921. The YMCA donated 200 books, Professional Woman's Club 30 books, and the public 325 books. One of the most unusual donations to the library came from Mr. E.L. Hawkins, who donated a mule to the library in January 1922. This notice appeared in the paper. Mr. E.L. Hawkins has donated a mule to the Wilson County Library, and immediately after the tobacco sales on Friday, Mr. A.O. Davis will sell this mule in front of the Smith's warehouse to the highest bidder. Be on hand and bid on the mule. And it must have worked. The literary department passed a resolution of thanks to Mr. Hawkins for the donation of the mule, quote, the sale of which netted a tidy sum for the library. They also thanked the auctioneer. Now, yes, this does sound kind of funny, actually donating a mule to a library, but it also says a lot about the time and the area of Wilson. It was rural, agriculture was important, tobacco was important, and a lot of people still relied on animals instead of farm machinery. In 1922, the town started providing the Woman's Club with $30 a month in support of the library. This allowed it to move into new quarters over the F.W. Warworth Company 5 and 10 cent store at 101 East Nash Street. This also meant people who lived in the town limits no longer had to pay the $2 subscription. They could use the library for free. Now, the only picture I could find of the Woolworth store was in Historic Wilson and Vintage Postcards by J. Robert Borkin III. We do have copies of this book available for checkout, and it is a very interesting read. I was not able to find a lot of photos. They didn't take a lot of pictures in the 1920s. However, this is one of Miss Madison Moss. We believe she worked at every library location, the Woman's Club, Woolworth's, the courthouse, and this picture was actually taken at this building in 1939 when she was hired as assistant librarian. She had worked for the library for 17 years. And she is listed as librarian in the 1923, 1925, and 1930 Wilson City Directory. The county began allocating money for the library in 1925 and also allowed it to move into the new courthouse. This meant county residents can now use the library free of charge. The library was located on the second floor above the sheriff's office. Also on the second floor was the courtroom, the solicitor, and the farm demonstration agent. The library remained at this location until 1939. The Woman's Club often made announcements about the library in the newspaper. They could include library hours, as these from December 19, 1925, from 3 to 5:30 in the afternoons and from 7 to 8:30 in the evenings. They could include new books the library had received, as well as library stats. And we're going to take a look at those right now. This is a list of new books the library received in October 1934. So Read the Rose, Dream's End, The Strange Borders, The Years of Lives, Maiden Voyage, Much Loved, Murder in Three Acts, Transient Lady, and The Casino Murder Case. These appear to be adult fiction because books for children would be labeled for juniors. We'll take a look at those in a minute. I just really wanted to point out that some books never go out of style. The library still has a copy of Murder in Three Acts by Agatha Christie. This is a list of children's books the library received in 1931. Junior nonfiction, Trees Every Child Should Know by Rogers, Pictures Every Child Should Know by Bacon, and junior fiction, Rainbow Valley. Books for older children we know the library had included Electricity for Boys and Everyday Life in the Colony. The library also published their monthly stats in the paper. These are the stats for September 1934. They were published on October 8th. Number of books in the library, 7,861. Number of adult fiction books loaned, 2,116. Number of adult nonfiction books loaned, 87. Number of a junior fiction loaned, 593. Number junior nonfiction loaned, 42. Number of adult magazines loaned, 32. Number of junior magazines loaned, 20. Total books and magazines loaned, 2,890. And it's signed Mrs. Willard Moss, librarian, aka Ms. Mattie Moss. Now, it appears some things tend to stay true. People come to the library to look at magazines and newspapers as well as books, and fiction was more popular than nonfiction. Even though it was in the middle of the Great Depression, approval for the construction of a new library was given in 1937, and it was completed in the summer of 1939. Money came from the City of Wilson, the County of Wilson, and the WPA. This library would be run by the county, not by the Woman's Club. The total cost, including land, was over $75,000. So I looked this up for today's money, and the cost came to $1,376,646.43. In December 1939, the Wilson Daily Times published an article on the history of the library, which was written by Mrs. J.R. McLean, the first volunteer librarian, and she said, quote, "On September 1st, 1939, Mrs. Ash Hines turned over to Mr. William N. Harold, chairman of the Wilson County Public Library, the keys and a check for $237.67 and laid down the labor of 17 years. That is how long the Woman's Club ran the Wilson County Public Library. The library opened in this location on Friday, October 13, 1939. It was beginning of a new chapter for the Wilson County Public Library. I hope you've enjoyed our program. Please leave your comments and questions below. Thank you for joining us today.